Yeah, what's good, Joe? It's your man, the Bigga P, and I'm here to share my thoughts on the Showtime card that just finished up, give or take, maybe a half hour ago. It was four fights, two that were on Showtime Extreme, and then two on the main card. And I've already stated my thoughts on Canelo and then Gulo, so I'm not gonna rehash those. The first fight, the fights on Show Extreme. The first fight was Danny Jacobs versus Milton Nunez. Um, Pretty much what it was. It was just Jacobs pretty much airing him out in the first round after three knockdowns. Um, Personally, I don't know. I mean, Jacobs, there was no. I mean, not. It was just nothing other than maybe it's just a can or whatever it is from. But all I know is now I think Danny Jacobs is, he's had about five fights since he's came back from the cancer, and I think he's good. I think he's good and ready to go after somebody's title. And I think he called out Peter Quillen. And judging by his last couple of fights, or whatever, in comparison to Quillen, I really think that that Jacobs has a very good chance of taking that belt off Quillen finally. I guess, of course, barring if Quillen actually gets by his next title defense, which is next month in DC. Um, but yeah, I mean, there's nothing really more to talk about that fight. Jacobs did what he was supposed to do. He took him out and won after three knockdowns, and it is what it is. The second fight was Daniel Ponce de Leon versus Juan Lopez. Now this fight, now they fought before back in 2007 or 8, I forget, and Juan wiped him out in a round. But you know how it goes. I mean, a lot has changed since then for both careers. I mean, Juan, of course, um, has had those the brawls with Orlando Salido, and then more recently had been KO'd by Mikey Garcia. And meanwhile, Ponce, as he did Triathlon, I mean, of course, we had the loss to Adrian Broner, which personally I thought that was a, that wasn't a robbery, but I thought Ponce won that by 2 rounds, but that's for another time. Um, and then of course the fight, and of course he picked up a featherweight belt, and then he by beating Johnny Gonzalez, and then he lost it to Morris by getting KO, which also then surprised me. So even then, after all that, I still thought at this point Ponce had more left in the tank than Walmart did, even though Ponce was the older man. The first round was very uneventful. It was more or less as a feel out type of round. But the second round is pretty much, it might be a candidate for the leading candidate for round of the year so far. First, it started off with Ponce putting Walmart in camps with an overhand left, and then Walmart, of course, getting to his feet. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, he's got to rectify the wrong. And then, and as Ponce was closing in for the kill, and then Walmart lands an absolute corker of a right hook that absolutely puts him on the case. And to me, if Ponce didn't get up from this shot, I wouldn't even blame him because it was so hard. Um, but then Ponce didn't. I mean, Ponce, what he should have done was try to clear his head. Try to walk instead of actually trading with him and staying on the ropes. Because once he got him on the ropes, he got him again, and he got knocked down again. Now he tried. Now Ponce said, he thought it was a slip of some sort, but it wasn't a slip. He did go down, and then afterwards, Ponce again, instead of trying to get away, try to clear his head, he traded and he went to the ropes where he absolutely got again. He got he was getting hit with flush combinations, and the referee had to stop it. And even then, Ponce tried to make a stink, saying that it was stopped too early. But when you're hit with a shot like that, you go down and you're getting on the ropes, you catch the shots. I mean, there's only so much leeway that you can actually, give yourself before the referee has to stop the fight. As much and for Wama, the fight doesn't mean anything in big sales. I mean, it just pretty much saying that he has Ponce's number, but I just don't see him going on to actually win a significant fight at this point. I mean, to me, it's just delaying the inevitable, which is going to happen to him. Once he faces a top fighter, he'll probably get KO'd again. As for Ponce, you know how it goes in the lighter weight divisions. He's 33 years old. He's getting old, and getting old in the lighter weight divisions is usually, it's usually the end. It's the beginning of the end for a fighter. I mean, most likely he'll probably reappear on some lower level card, right? Maybe get his win column back up again, and who knows? He may or he may not pick up a belt again. But yeah, 33 at that division. And as much as I did, because Ponce is one of my favorite fighters, but yeah, it's getting to the point where he's, it's coming to the end. We're coming to the end of his career, um, or at least not as the end of his career, but end of his days as an actual top contender. So, I mean, we'll see. We'll see where it goes. Who knows, man? I mean, I've been wrong before with those two, so we'll see. And then the co-main event was on the main Showtime card after the Canelo and Gula replay was Deontay Wilder versus Malik Scott. Now Deontay, I think the thing is, if he wins this fight, then he goes on to face the winner of Ariola Stavern too, and then of course go on for the vacant WBC heavyweight title. Now Deontay Wilder is pretty much known for one thing. He's never going past 4 rounds, and has an absolute cannon of a right hand. And even then, I thought Malik Scott, who I actually I do think somewhat highly of, would at least have the boxing skills to actually draw him out and maybe even make things a little uncomfortable. But this is a fight disappointment. I mean, pretty much I think. I mean, the knockout shot that landed was not the straight right hand, because the right hand actually hit him on the gloves. I believe it was the left hook that hit him right on the temple that had him out. So Deontay stays at 31 knockouts. I mean, it's hard to really gauge him, because he is flawed. I mean, the ones who actually managed to drag him out past 2 or 3 rounds, the fights I've seen. He does have flaw, and I do believe he's probably hiding a suspect. And he's been down before. I've seen the fight, because it'll be interesting to see whether or not this right hand can, could he actually knock out an Areola or a Stavern or Tyson Fury? Well, Tyson Fury, yeah, he most likely he can knock out a Tyson Fury. I'm not even gonna start tripping on that. But I just think that, obviously his next fight is probably gonna be a significant fight. But I just can't help but think. I mean, I know they're built up to be some sort of dominant, probably the next American Hope. But I have a feeling that he will get exposed at some point. I just don't know who or when. And even then, I would still put my money on both Areola or Stavern exposing him, depending on who he actually gets next. Malik Scott just disappointed me, because I honestly expected a lot more. I didn't expect him to get blown out like that. I mean, like I said, it took the replay for me to figure out what the hell he went down with. Because, I mean, as far as I know, the right hand is where I saw landed, and it landed on his hands. Excuse me. It landed on his hands. But, I mean, I guess... I mean, what can you do? He took a temple shot. The right hand just took him down, and he lost. What can I say? Hopefully that he'll actually try to make it. Take his career a little bit more seriously, and then hopefully maybe get back in the mix again. And then the main event, Danny Garcia versus Mauricio Herrera. Now, before that, I mean, this fight, more than any other previous Danny fight, this fight interested me more, because more or less of Herrera, because Herrera is known for taking the 0 off Ruslan Provatnikov, who's the current 140, who's the current WBO 140 champion. Mauricio is a bit of a spoiler. Good counterpuncher, good volume puncher. He's a very defensive-minded fighter. This fight impressed me more because, unlike some of the other opponents that Danny has, Mauricio would actually more or less, see, will probably test him, see what he has boxing wise, and that's why I was more interested in this fight because I'm like, if Danny can do what three other people, although beat him, but couldn't do and stop him, then I'd be fully convinced that Danny actually had something, had something because I'm not the biggest fan of Danny Garcia, um, by a long shot. I mean, I've given grudgingly respect um, for his last fight where he pretty much he outfought Lucas Matisse, but I still want to see more to see to for me to think that he's actually worthy of a top pound for pound status. And this fight definitely exposed some things. Exposed a lot of things really. Um, that Danny possibly at one, is probably fought his final fight at 140. But even then, I don't think weight. I can't really blame the weight. The weight is because I don't think it was the weight. Because more or less, it was Herrera from the opening bell. Herrera controlled the fight with movement, keeping him off rhythm, and a jab, a beautiful jab. It was a jab to the stomach, repeated hard jab, and then smothering him on the inside, and hitting uppercuts in the clinch, and in I didn't see Guerrero do. I mean, not Guerrero. Excuse me. I didn't see Garcia make any type of adjustments. I mean, he threw a fancy combination or he tried to roll off a punch, but that's really all he was doing. Um, I know most people was like, you gotta take the title from the champion. Clinching and jabbing is not, are things that you could do, but Herrera was doing this to a big effect. I mean, he broke the man's nose. I mean, he drew blood in think it was either round 5 or 6, and then again in the final round. Um, and even then, Danny, I mean, there was nothing I mean, and what really I think ruined the fight for me more, too, was the open scoring. I'm not a fan of open scoring. I'm not a fan of letting the boxers know what the score is because it takes something out of the fight. Um, and and it makes the boxer who's actually winning cruising unless the fight is absolutely close on the scorecards, which it wasn't. Because it was like ridiculous. I think round 8, whatever they announced it, they had them. They had, I think, two of the judges had Danny up by 2 or 3 rounds, and I was absolutely stunned and flabbergasted that that was even a possibility because Herrera was putting on a classic spoiler boxing performance. Movement, jab, upstairs, downstairs, clinching, counterpunching, effective counterpunching, walking Danny down. I mean, most people are using the argument that Danny outlanded him in power punches. So fucking what? Danny got out jabbed and overall got total punches. Herrera outlanded him overall. So when it got to the later rounds, especially the 12th round, it was one of those things. Either I don't know what it was. Either Danny took the round off, or he was tired. But I mean, regardless of the fact, I mean Herrera still got him. I mean, Herrera absolutely started busting him up in the final 10, 15 seconds of the fight. And in my heart, like I said, I mean, Herrera won this comfortably. I'm talking about maybe like an 8-4, 9-3 type of scorecard. Of course, in my heart, I already knew what time it was, and I know they're not going to let Danny Garcia lose in Puerto Rico, even though. It would be. I mean, even though he did deserve to lose, and sure enough, I was right. Danny didn't. Danny got the gift, majority decision, by judges who actually saw the fight for Danny 8-4, which is absolute bullshit. Um, so yeah, why Danny is a tough kid, and that boxing skills, like if it's a shame that Herrera didn't have the actual power to actually drop him maybe a couple times. I mean, not knock him out because I don't think that was gonna happen, but at least put him on the canvas maybe a couple times to at least to solidify that he actually really did win this fight. I mean, although he won this fight clear as day to me. Um, And I hope Herrera either A gets a rematch or he gets another opportunity, gets another big fight because he deserves it. Danny, this is probably the Ashley Theophane fight all over again. It was a gift. He knew it. I mean, his body language, everything, he knew it. I mean, I kind of chuckled a little bit when he talked about, he knew how to make adjustments because he didn't make any in the fight. Um, but yeah, they weren't gonna let him lose in Puerto Rico, and honestly, he probably should have because the Puerto Rican fans were actually booing it. I also want to know too that who was the person who actually decided to if you want to try to get a market in Puerto Rico for Danny Garcia, who suggested to face Mauricio Herrera. I mean, a guy who gave likes of Russell Provandikov and Mike Alvarado all types of trouble in the ring. A guy who is not. I mean, if you wanted the Danny to impress, you should have gotten at least someone who came forward, who was face first, who was offensive minded, not someone who was able to successfully spoil him. Um, well, I mean, like I said, it's lessons learned, and most likely Danny, will probably go up to 147. But I mean, pretty much that shows me like if Danny had actually um, signed to fight Floyd, Floyd would have would have decisioned him probably on something like a 12-0, like for like 12-0 straight. Um, yeah, whatever it is, if Danny does go up, Danny better make sure that he faces a couple of 147 cats first before he even goes after Floyd, because boxing wise, he's not going to cut it. He's not. I mean, he's not going to cut it at all. So, well, I mean, those are my thoughts about the card, and most likely I'm going to watch that Garcia Herrera fight again because I've been going back and forth on a couple forums I'm on people thinking that that there was no robbery and Garcia won this or was a draw, which both things still blow my mind. So yeah, this will definitely get rewatched as soon as I get it downloaded. But yep. Until next time. All right. Peace.